The MP is currently receiving treatment at Karen Hospital in Nairobi. Plus, President Ruto now claims his current deputy Kithure Kindiki is better than Gachagua, for he understands how the government works.
Sasa niko na deputy huyu anaelewa barabara, anajua stima, anajua mpango ya serikali ya SHA.
And government pathologist Johansen Odwor testifies in the case of the murder of Wells Fargo Human Resource Manager Willis Ayeko. Here is our sign language interpreter. Good evening, I'm Abubakar Abdullahi. Welcome to the broadcast. Now, the family of Father Alois Bet has called for expedited investigations and justice for the man whose legacy of love and service has left an indelible mark on the community in Kerio, Elgeyo Marakwet. At a requiem mass held for the slain Catholic priest, Father Bet, the government has been called on to end the wave of sporadic banditry attacks that have continued to plague the region. Sheila Chilangat begins our broadcast tonight.
This somber ceremony brought together tens of Catholic faithfuls, leaders and the local community to bid farewell to Father Alois Bet, who was brutally killed last Thursday in Elgeyo Marakwet.
And even when this happened, all my colleagues called me, everybody called me. And I almost stopped receiving calls because they were asking me, "Governor, at a father."
Father Alois has been described as a man known for his humility and his compassion for his flock. He has been said to be a man whose legacy of love and service has left an indelible mark on the community in Elgeyo Marakwet.
They have crossed all the boundaries and they have struck the place where everybody runs for safety when there is insecurity in Kerio Valley.
The government has been called on to take decisive action to end the insecurity in Kerio Valley, a region that has been ravaged by sporadic banditry attacks.
Every red line was crossed. We are really hoping, and I think we got the commitment yesterday, that this time round we will bring it to a close.
The killing of Father Bet has been condemned, with leaders calling for expedited investigations. On Sunday, Deputy Inspector General of Police Eliud Lagat issued a 3-day ultimatum to residents of Elgeyo Marakwet to present the suspects of the murder or to provide information about those suspected of committing this atrocity.
Because if we let these people go, the killers, then we are promoting the culture of impunity. And when a crime is not punished, or rather those who have committed crime are just left scot-free, then we end up with a society which is very chaotic.
Meanwhile, for the locals and Catholic faithfuls here, the memory of Father Alois Bet lives on in their hearts. They say his death has left a gap that can never be filled, but his spirit of love and humility continues to inspire. Sheila Chilangat for TV47.
Now, learning has officially resumed in all schools that had been temporarily shut down in the Kerio Valley following heightened security concerns sparked by the killing of a Catholic priest in the region. Elgeyo Marakwet County Commissioner John Korir says the reopening comes after the deployment of additional security personnel as directed by Deputy President and the Inspector General of Police, Eliud Lagat. According to the Commissioner, only 3 schools in the Tot region of Marakwet had been closed, but they are now fully operational. Korir says enough officers have been stationed in the region to ensure learning continues uninterrupted. He has called on residents to work closely with law enforcement agencies to maintain peace. Local communities have further been urged to support government efforts to safeguard education in the area.
So far, quite a number of measures have been put in place. And following that particular incident, a few schools were affected last week on Friday. Basically, one secondary school that is taught, and Kapkain Primary School and Taught Primary School, which are actually within the presence of Taught area where the Catholic priest was killed. What we have done as a department, we have deployed security officers in all schools within Kerio Valley. So there should not be any fear at all. These security officers will be in these schools for the period we deem it is unsafe for learners and teachers.
Moving on, Juja Member of Parliament George Koimburi, who was allegedly taken away by unknown people after a Sunday church service, was Monday morning discovered abandoned in the Jacaranda coffee plantation in the Kibichoi neighborhood of the Ruiru coffee plantation in Kiambu County. And as Mike Kagwongo now reports, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has urged the international community to closely monitor the unfolding events in Kenya and her neighborhood.
The rift between Juja legislator and his purported enemies seems not to culminate any soon, after the latter found himself at the hands of who his family says were unknown abductors Sunday evening. Following the release of distressing images that showed him screaming in agony and in obvious misery, Koimburi's family now claims that his life is now under threat. The legislator, who is presently receiving treatment at Karen Hospital in Nairobi, has been on government's radar since he accused Kenya Kwanza of spending over 13 billion shillings of taxpayers' money to woo African presidents to support former Prime Minister Raila Odinga's bid for the AUC chairpersonship. While visiting Koimburi in Karen Hospital Monday afternoon, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua said he was out of danger, even though his purported abductors had tortured, leaving him between a rock and a hard place.
Some chemical was administered through inhalation, and the doctors have told us that preliminary investigations confirm that that chemical has interfered with his vocal cords.
Gachagua urged the international community to closely monitor unfolding events in the country and her neighbors, censuring President William Ruto's government over what he termed as targeting opposition MPs by withdrawing their security details.
And now we have confirmation that President William Ruto, CS for Interior Kipchumba Murkomen, and the Deputy Inspector General, Mr. Eliud Langat, have put up a squad to deal with leaders who are opposed to this regime.
The National Police Service, however, on Monday evening dismissed claims that Koimburi was abducted, saying the MP was under investigation for a land fraud matter and a consent to prosecute was issued by the ODPP. In a statement to newsrooms, NPS spokesperson Mushiri Nyaga said Koimburi had on Friday, 23rd May, having been fully aware of police intentions to arrest, evaded a dragnet and duped police by escaping using a motorcycle, alongside his private security, and switched off his mobile phone. Mushiri said a special team from DCI headquarters was working on the purported abduction video and all the circumstances surrounding these allegations with a view of getting conclusively to the bottom of this matter.
He has serious soft tissue injuries. This is torture normally done by professionals. He has lost his voice, and the doctors are working round the clock to restore his vocal cords. And the Honorable Koimburi has been able to communicate through writing because he is not able to speak.
Following his remarks on the African Union Commission chairpersonship, Koimburi was also accosted by DCI detectives in February this year, while he was traveling to Parliament here in Nairobi. Mike Kagwongo, TV47, Nairobi.
Elsewhere, President William Ruto now says he has been having a cordial relationship with his deputy, Professor Kithure Kindiki. Speaking at the Meru National Park in Meru County, the president described Kindiki as a supportive and keen on delivering the government agenda. He lauded Kindiki as the best deputy president, a calm and composed performer than his former, Rigathi Gachagua. In the past, President Ruto has accused Gachagua of failing to support the government's agenda after his impeachment last year.
Na mimi nataka niwashukuru watu wa hapa sehemu hii kwa kunipatia huyu muungwana anaitwa Profesa Kithure Kindiki. Huyu muungwana niwaambie sasa niko na deputy. Huyu anaelewa barabara, anajua stima, anajua mpango ya serikali ya SHA, ni mtu mwadilifu. That is how we are going to change Kenya. Nyinyi mnanielewa? Yes. Ananisaidia kusukuma hii gurudumu. Mumemuona sehemu mbalimbali akisukuma gurudumu ya Kenya. Sio mtu ya kisirani, sio mtu ya hasira, sio mtu ya chuki, sio mtu ya ukabila, ni mtu anaelewa deputy president si mtu ya Meru. Deputy president ni wa Republic of Kenya.
Elsewhere, a couple in Upande village, Unguja sub-county, is facing 9 counts of murder after allegedly burning 9 members of the same family to death in an incident that sent shockwaves across the country 2 weeks ago. Christopher Owino and his wife, Rosaline Otieno Okelo, denied the charges and applied for a cash bail, which was set to be determined on June 9th. Family members who flocked the Siaya law courts for the opening of the case called for justice of their kin. Well, still on the corridor of justice, 3 people accused of planning and executing in cold-blood murder of former Wells Fargo HR, Human Resource, Willis Ayeko, has today appeared before the High Court in Siaya. The trio, identified as Victor Okoth, Samuel Onyango, and Duncan Ochieng, appeared before Justice David Kemei for the first hearing of the case. The prosecution called 2 witnesses who included government pathologist Johansen Odwor and a state witness. The late Ayeko's body was found floating on the shallow Mungowere stream at the border of Siaya and Kakamega counties after he had been reported missing on October 18th, 2024.
Are you familiar with the term agonal period?
Yes.
What is agonal period? Can you explain it? AGO
and air.
So what is it?
Just the period after death.
It's a period. From your estimation, what was the period? You cannot tell this court. You cannot tell this court during or when or for how long the disease had already passed on.
Moving on, the Finance Committee has today continued with sessions to collect public views on the 2025 Finance Bill. Kenyans have been urged to participate and share their views on the budget before the bill is presented to Parliament for approval.
The public hearings are focused on 2 critical bills, the Finance Bill 2025 and the Virtual Asset Service Providers Bill 2025, which seeks to regulate digital assets.
The benefits are transferred as opposed to being made by a licensed SEZ operator, but then they end up transferring that advantage they got to someone who is unlicensed, who is doing something entirely different from what the intention of that SEZ was. But anyway, you also need right for that we want to look.
Clause 43, which the bill proposes to update the transaction that do not require the issuance of electronic tax invoices. Under this particular clause, we do not have an issue in respect to what has been proposed in the bill. What we are coming forth with is a proposal to include 2 more transactions which we feel should be excluded in terms of the electronic tax invoices issuance.
During today's session, representatives from various sectors, including business associations, civil society groups, and financial experts, voiced their concerns and recommendations.
Other clauses within the finance bill touching on the income tax. In this particular provision, what is happening is if for one reason or the other I want to get out of my pension scheme, before reaching the 20 years period that is provided or before reaching my retirement age, then I will be taxed because I'm accessing my pension early.
The government has emphasized that the bill is not introducing new taxes, but rather seeks to close loopholes in tax expenditures.
Till on the service, but you cannot follow. Yeah. So how do you put this? Because tax collector is crying that I'm not able to meet my target because the relevant information has now shifted from the physical office, physical documents to online to this particular gadget. Yeah. All payment platforms now are enabled through this particular system. How do you propose? Because we want to make the laws that is going to enable the tax collector maximize on collection using again the system. We also want to make the laws that ensure that your very personal information is protected.
The hearings, organized by the National Assembly's Committee on Finance and National Planning, are expected to run until the 30th of May this year and aim to allow the stakeholders and citizens to present their views on proposed budget policies.
Elsewhere, the process of recruiting a new chief executive officer for the Teachers Service Commission has been halted by the courts following an urgent application challenging the legality of the ongoing exercise. Justice Ocharo Kebira has issued an order after Thomas Musomi Oyugi, a resident of Mombasa County, filed a petition under a certificate of urgency, questioning and challenging the legality and transparency of the process. The court's decision comes just weeks after the commission announced the vacancy for the new chief executive officer to succeed Nancy Macharia, whose term is set to expire in June this year. The matter will now proceed for further hearing as the court examines the claims raised in the petition. Now, he has built a reputation as the nation's public defender, a one-man legal army who has dealt irritatingly impactful blows to the powerful with nothing but the Constitution. Our guest tonight is Senator Okia Omtata. We debate his presidential game plan. Is Okia the sixth realistic? Talk to us. Remember, you can be part of this discussion. Send us a message on 22047. The hashtag to use is TV47 News. Senator, thank you very much for your time tonight and welcome to TV47.
Thank you. Thank you.
Senator, perhaps the most perfect place to begin this discussion is one of your recent tweets in which you say, Kenya does not lack democracy, it suffers from elite capture. We are recycling billionaires in government while citizens cheer for tribal kings. It's time to stop worshipping the ballot and demand a reset. Real transformation needs disruption of the status quo. What in Okia's view is Kenya's current problem?
Disregard for the rule of law. We have a very beautiful constitution, we have beautiful laws, but they mean for nothing. And that's whereby the state capture then comes in, that whims of powerful individuals are what are the law of the country, and not the code that is in the constitution and in in other statutes.
Kenya's 2010 constitution, Senator, has been ranked as the most progressive, one of the most progressive. Is it a question of the law or the implementation of the law in your view?
It's implementation. Political goodwill to implement the law is lacking.
And that, in your view, should come from a political class that is in need of a change?
There must be a political class that believes that Kenya needs to lay foundations and leap forward into the global economy. So you need a leadership that looks at Kenya being bigger than themselves, and one that is out to build a legacy and not to enrich itself.
But Senator, in a democratic dispensation such as ours, leaders don't bring themselves. The electorate elect them every 5 years in what the Constitution has given us as a referendum, really, to judge on their performance. To what extent, rather, are the electorate to blame in the mess?
No, the electorate is not to blame in any way. What is to blame is the leadership. If you look at all these people, they come up with manifestos that are beautiful. First of all, they have captured the state. They don't allow the elections to be conducted as anticipated or as prescribed in Chapter 7 of the Constitution. They do, especially for the presidential elections. The Constitution says the presidential election should terminate at the constituency. We keep on bringing things in bombers and then creating that and a suspension and what have you, and then the confusion, so that even whoever emerges a leader lacks legitimacy. Why don't we do what the script says in the Constitution?
But Senator, are you in entirety absolving the electorate of being part of the current Kenyan problem?
I personally do, because I think the electorate listens. The leadership must have some no-go areas, some taboos. Our leadership does not have any taboos. So you'll find that they steal, then use that money to bamboozle the electorate. They make lofty promises. Look at the manifesto that what Kenya Kwanza had last time. If that manifesto had been implemented, would there be any need to challenge Ruto? No. But when the manifesto is just used as a campaign platitude, then it becomes necessary to begin following people up. But most important is that the electorate must be allowed to express itself. Because when you find a situation whereby an election terminates and so many days later you don't know who the winner is, something is amiss. We should be able to know who the winner is the next day. And that's how our constitution is designed. Just like the Americans, when they went to the election last time, on 6th they voted, on 7th they knew Trump had won, then they took a nap until January to formally declare him.
Senator, just on purpose of curiosity, you mentioned of the Kenya Kwanza and the Ruto manifesto. Is it your belief that that manifesto has not been implemented?
Not at all. It was just a campaign platitude that carried the day. And if you look at it, for example, it was the simple thing of saying we are not going to borrow money. Ruto is borrowing almost, if you compare to Uhuru, it's like more than what Uhuru borrowed. Yet there was an undertaking in the manifesto that loans will be a thing of the past, that we shall have a balanced budget, that we shall cut down on expenditure. But look at how they are spending. The issue, look at the other day, you just saw the other day the ministers have begun running around with bundles of money that they cannot explain where it came from. They're trying to bamboozle the public, trying to create that a juggernaut that you cannot, that are unstoppable kind of thing, and then trying to reduce the entire campaign to who has stolen more than the other.
Fair enough. Senator, you've been very passionate about the question of debt and who owes Kenya and what they owe Kenya. The total debt currently stands at 11.4 trillion shillings, at least on paper, up from 8.7 when the current regime came into power in September 2022.
No, 2.7.
The debt has risen by 2.7 trillion shillings in the 3 years.
Which regime, the current one? Yeah, in the 2 years that Ruto has been in, he has added in about close to 3 trillion.
Yes.
When the Mwai Kibaki left, he left at 2.7 trillion. And these people have added on about 10 trillion. In fact, the real amount of debt that we have is about 13.7 trillion. So these people have added about 12 trillion. over a period of 12 years. That's up to 30th November last year. But when you go back to our history, we have had very minimal borrowing over the years. And then they introduced a new thing. They began commercial loans. We used to have bilateral loans, negotiated loans, but now they're borrowing on the commercial market. And then most of the money is not coming in. You don't see it in the economy. So we have fallen into a debt trap that we must find a way out. Even before you talk about a way forward, we must find a way out of where we are today.
Fair enough. And Senator, I was making mention of those numbers because I was going to ask one question. You famously are on point, hinting that you will jail, I believe, the former president and the current one on the question of debt. Is it so?
I'll prosecute them.
And you're confident that this will be a worthy prosecution trial?
Facts and figures don't lie. Figures don't lie. We have got evidence that this money was borrowed. We have evidence that this money did not go into the consolidated fund. We want to know where the money went.
And in your view, those facts and numbers seemingly don't point out to a proper usage of the money borrowed.
They don't even the word usage is too big. They just point to theft. They point to errant theft, where money was stolen, and money was borrowed and never brought into this economy. This money is out there. What was factored into the economy is the debt. And these are government documents, downloaded from the website of the central bank, from the website of the treasury, and an analysis done. There are about 50,000 pages, an analysis done. And when you put them when you analyze and summarize them, they come out very clear. It becomes very clear that this money is with these people and they need to pay it back. We are not going to punish people in Madeira to pay loans that somebody borrowed to buy a building in Dubai or to invest in the stock market in New York.
Senator, what of those who argue that some of the borrowed money may have been misused, misallocated in projects, but not entirely stolen by the people who you are accusing of stealing those funds?
My position is this, that this money went into no project because Parliament passed a budget, the appropriation budget. It gave the executive to implement. There's a very clear procedure for borrowing in the Constitution that says you must borrow, the borrowings must be in the budget. Parliament passed that. These people went on and borrowed money that was not approved by Parliament, that was not tied to anything. So they cannot say that they misappropriated it because they cannot even show where it went into which project it went into. Like the 7 billion euro bond, 7 billion US dollar euro bonds. You can't show where a single coin went that went in terms of benefiting Kenyans. And these are the things we are trying to trace. If they did, all they need to do is to say, we invested here and this is the evidence.
But Senator, running an economy such as Kenya's, and globally all economies to an extent borrow, isn't it? You're not ruling out the prospect of borrowing. Should you even be the president?
Borrowing is not forbidden. But borrowing for what? Remember when Mike Becky left, we were only borrowing 5% of our development budget. In fact, the ideal situation is that we should finance our budget from our revenue in taxes. And so, if we have to borrow, and this is Article 220 of the Constitution, if you have to borrow, we must indicate why we are borrowing, where the money is coming from, and what the money is going to do. That's why we must borrow only for capital projects. We cannot borrow for current expenditure.
Fair enough, Senator. We have a lot to discuss and talk about your presidential bid and how far it is. Time for us to take a short break here on TV47. Remember, you can be part of this discussion. Send us a message on 22047. We'll be back after this break. Stay with us. Coming up after the break, the government has announced the release of 200,000 bags of maize from the National Strategic Grain Reserve to registered millers in an effort to stabilize flour prices.
kids and families, get ready for the most fun-packed show around, Kids on the Block. Join us for awesome music, magical storytime adventures, and super cool arts and crafts. Plus, we pop tasty treats in our cooking corner. Learn, laugh, and create with us. Kids on the Block, where every day is a brand new adventure. Don't miss it.
Rise and shine with the ultimate morning power play from Monday to Friday, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Join Fred Indemuli.
Time for us to take a look at the headlines this morning
as he takes you straight to the heart of the nation on Morning Cafe. From breaking down political intrigues to unpacking the stories shaping our country, this is where tough questions meet hard truths.
The president says he has cancelled, then they say, Igwe.
Stay ahead, stay informed, and stay connected. It's your go-to morning fix on politics, policy, and the pulse of the nation.
Raila Odinga has put Kenya's interests first for many times.
The State of the Nation with Fred Indemuli, Monday to Friday, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. only on TV47. Your morning, your nation, your voice.
Business opportunities are like buses. There's always another one coming. Richard Branson.
No more excuses. It's time to rise, grind, and own your mornings. Join Coach Shadrach Omer every Monday to Friday from 5:30 to 6 a.m. only on TV47. Full body workouts, zero equipment, maximum results. Start strong, stay strong. TV47 Fitness with Coach Shadrach only on TV47.
Hey kids and families, get ready for the most fun-packed show around, Kids on the Block. Join us for awesome music, magical storytime adventures, and super cool arts and crafts. Plus, we pop tasty treats in our cooking corner. Learn, laugh, and create with us. Kids on the Block, where every day is a brand new adventure. Don't miss it.
Rise and shine with the ultimate morning power play from Monday to Friday, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Join Fred Indemuli.
Time for us to take a look at the headlines this morning
as he takes you straight to the heart of the nation on Morning Cafe. From breaking down political intrigues to unpacking the stories shaping our country, this is where tough questions meet hard truths.
The president says he has cancelled, then they say, Igwe.
Stay ahead, stay informed, and stay connected. It's your go-to morning fix on politics, policy, and the pulse of the nation.
Raila Odinga has put Kenya's interests first for many times.
The State of the Nation with Fred Indemuli, Monday to Friday, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. only on TV47. Your morning, your nation, your voice.
Business opportunities are like buses. there's always another one coming. Richard Branson.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Now, a warrant of arrest has been issued against the deputy party leader of the Democratic Congress Party, Cleophas Malala, following a weekend meeting that allegedly disrupted transport and business operations in Kakamega, Western Region. Now, Western Region Police Commander Isa Mohammed confirmed the development, stating that Malala must present himself to his office within 72 hours to record a statement. The police have already impounded 3 vehicles linked to the politician, intensifying investigations into the nature and purpose of Saturday's gathering. That is a developing story. Former Kakamega Senator Cleophas Malala, there is a warrant of arrest issued to arrest him. Let's have a listen to that.
Roads are closed for 2 hours or 3 hours, and there's no business going on. People fear looting, people start closing businesses. We intercepted his vehicle, which was being driven on the wrong side of the road at high speed, carelessly. And his driver jumped over the vehicle, attempted to escape. Mheshimiwa Cleophas Malala should report to my office anytime from now. We're expecting him today to come so that we question him on the Saturday's discourse.
Well, just a reminder of who our guest is in studio. Senator Okia Omtata is our guest tonight. Let's get back to the discussion. Senator, before we proceed, any comments on that?
Yes, I would like to comment that freedom of expression and the freedom of assembly is not enjoyed at the expense of, at the pleasure of the police. But I would say that one thing that I find positive in this particular story is that somebody has been summoned. I don't know if a warrant has been issued, because the only person who can issue the warrant will be a magistrate. I don't know if one has been issued, but if it's a police summon, I would ask Mr. Malala to honorably present himself to the police and record whatever statement I want him to record, and then that should be. At least if they move away from the drama of trying to chase people around, to engage like that in a military, in a military theater of war, would help. So the positive thing is that he has said, okay, come, let Malala present himself, and then if they take him to court, we deal with it. Because I don't personally, where I am sitting, I don't see anything bad that Mr. Malala did by having that rally that he had.
Fair enough. Senator, let's get back.
The other day, the president disrupted. If you remember in Nairobi here, when he went around with pickpockets, when he was leading a gang of pickpockets who were stealing from people, was it not President Ruto disrupting? What he did worse than disrupt. He should have been arrested for carrying goons through the streets of Nairobi and the estates. Why wasn't Ruto summoned for parading goons in the street, in the city of Nairobi? So Malala just did a small thing in Kakamega. What Ruto did was much bigger. So if it's good for the Ganda, for the goose, it should be good for the Ganda.
Fair enough, Senator. Let's get back to our discussion. You want to, I suppose, be the 6th president of the Republic of Kenya. 4 of your predecessors each at least had more than at least 1 term, 2 terms. What makes and gives confidence to people like you that the 5th can be a 1-term president?
Well, even those 2 terms, I would really want to begin counting under this new constitution.
Yes.
Even those 2 terms, you remember the first one, the second term of Uhuru, got disbanded. I think it got disrupted to some extent by the Supreme Court judgment that nullified the results, which means sometimes underhand deals are involved. My confidence is that if we are able to move these elections, to hold these elections according to the Constitution, and we terminate the presidential election at the constituency, there's no way Mr. Ruto can win. He can only win if he gets his way to Bomas.
And are you doubting the possibility of the election being held as per the Constitution?
It has never been. The presidential election has never been. Because, you know, we have got two distinct elections in Kenya. You have got the constituency, the 5 elections. If it's in the ward, there's the one in the constituency. Then there are the 3 in the counties. That's the women rep, the governor, and the senator. The 3. Those ones are won by a simple majority. So those ones, even you can have somebody with 100 votes, and the person with 101 votes will win. The presidential election we have is not the same. It's different. You require, first of all, to win 50% plus 1 of the vote. So even if you are 100 candidates, one of you must be powerful enough to acquire more than 1/2 of the votes. Otherwise, there will be a runoff between the first and the second. So the number of candidates is irrelevant. And now, to achieve that, you require to have this election also acquiring a certain threshold, which is at least a majority in 24 constituencies, in 24 counties. So with that kind of election, then you find that the requirement in that election is that because every vote counts, and you need 50%, that's the block, plus 1 vote.
Yes.
And any vote counts. So the election is designed in such a way that the votes are counted at the polling station, and the results are announced. Then the returning officer at the constituency level collects and announces the results by the constituency. So for the presidential, we need 290 results certificates announced at the constituency. Then from there is nothing like a presidential returning officer, which they have created in the regulations. That's unconstitutional. There's only a returning officer at the constituency who conducts the election of president in the constituency, because the law says that where more than one candidate is cleared for president, to vie for president, an election shall take place in each constituency. So the returning officer in the constituency is the presidential returning officer. And that's why he announces the results. After that, what is left is just a declaration, which even you in the media should be able to declare upon receiving all the 290 results. You do your maths and say this thing has either gone, it has not gone, there will be a runoff or something like that.
And Senator, you have quite elaborated the process, which is constitutionally provided. Is that the process that you think its implementation to a free and fair election is often faulty?
Yes, what happens is that after that, when the mistake that we have done is that after the elections from the polling stations, somehow the regulations provide that those ballots, you have heard of transmission and whatever. In the Act and in the regulations, they have provided that the results of the polling stations are brought to Bomas to be retallied.
Yes.
And that's why the problem comes. When they begin to do those funny tallying, and then they come up with the results that are not understood, they switch off TVs, they do whatever, they bring in choirs from Tanzania to sing. When what should happen is, the media should have called the election for us on that day. Then we wait for a formality that can even be delivered by email by the chairman of the IBC.
Fair enough, Senator. As we talk of the election and the possibility of the outcomes, there is a constitutionally mandated body to oversee this election, which is IEBC. There were commissioners whose names were nominated to Parliament. There is a court process that has since stopped. As a prospective presidential candidate, do you have faith in the process that led to the nomination of those members?
I don't have any faith in that, because the whole thing is conceptually flawed. even with the best intentions, you can never get an independent commission out of an ad hoc committee. You even saw people fighting, going to court to say they should be in the ad hoc committee, which means there's something in the ad hoc committee people are going for. You are giving people a chance of about 6 months to make a decision that's a matter of life and death for a country in terms of the elections in this country. And these are very high stakes nomination of a commission. So a lot of illicit money gets to play, a lot of vested interests come into play, and that's why when somebody went to court until the Court of Appeal, fighting that he must be on the selection panel. The ideal thing to do is this. We have got countries that have constitutions similar to what ours requires, South Africa and Brazil. Look at how they constitute their commissions. The commission is not constituted by an ad hoc committee. It's constituted by constitutional office holders. So like we could be giving a responsibility to the judge, or to the judiciary, to other institutional officers, whatever, to nominate people who can sit on the electoral body. So that if these people mess, we still know who to blame. Today, if I ask you, do you remember the panel that selected Cherera or Chebukati? We don't. Because they bear no responsibility. And that's why all our commissions have failed, because we use ad hoc committees to do the impossible, to appoint a permanent commission. So if we want to cure that, we must go and cure that. Or we do what the old democracies do, whereby they say political parties will each nominate a player to the electoral body. It happened in Kenya once under the IPPG. That's when we had the successful 205 referendum, and we had the successful 202 elections. The commission that handled that was by political parties, and we had no dispute.
Senator, of course there is mutual mistrust of whether...
Yeah, well, you give the crooks. Let them check each other.
There's mutual mistrust from even parties who participate in the election as to whether an independent, fair, free, verifiable election outcome can be projected in Kenya. But what does IEBC, in your view, needs to be given to hold a free election?
First of all, the standard of elections in Kenya is no longer free and fair. The standard is tamper-proof. If you read Article 86, Article 81, it's clearly tamper-proof, not free and fair. Because we talk of accurate, verifiable.
But for it to be
accurate and verifiable, it means that it's a tamper-proof election where we cannot even estimate. It's not a question of being fair. It's a question of doing something that is mathematically accurate.
But so, isn't the fairness on the process that leads to the
outcome? What I'm trying to get at is this, that the election anticipated under our constitution is a digital election where human intervention is minimal. The way it happens in Brazil, the way it happens in India, with those billions, and they do it in a matter of hours, and they're done. So we need a digital election in Kenya. That's why when our Supreme Court, for a presidential dispute, they're only given 14 days to make a determination, because
fair enough.
It's supposed to be a digital election, but we are stuck on paper, on paper ballots alone. If we want that through, then we shall be able to achieve a tamper-proof election, that once it is done, anybody with a dispute, we just go to the record and you'll see the record, and we'll tell you this thing was cooked. But
fair enough, Senator, and because of the interest of time, perhaps two last questions. One, you are among people who want to replace the president, vie for the presidency. You will tell us whether that is true, or I'm asserting my own judgments on that. But there is the question of a divided opposition, each party wanting to field its candidate. Some of the names are Kalonzo Musyoka, Rigathi Gachagua, Martha Karua. Why not form a formidable opposition?
And that's why, first of all, I want to answer the first question. Yes, I'm vying for the presidency. I have an exploratory committee which is going out. And so far, they've done 31 counties. I'm left with 16. And the verdict is virtually that the preliminary report is that I should vie because the ground is supportive. Now, apart from that, the question of uniting the opposition is being cast within the mold of what happened under the old constitution when Moi, I think, we had about 25 or 30% of the ballot, and he won. In the current constitution, you must have 50 plus 1, 50% plus 1.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter how many candidates there are. 2, I want to engage at the level of policy.
Yes.
And the only person I've seen trying to come up with something close to policy is Rigiji when he talks of one term.
Yes.
But now one term also ends with one term. After one term, what happens? So I would like to see not necessarily a convergence of faces, but a convergence of a clear policy framework for moving this country.
And if there is a need for convergence of those faces, are you willing to back any of those candidates?
If somebody comes up with a position like the one I have, for example, I'm saying the budget must become the only tool for distributing resources in the country, not the president. So that when you become an MP, you have got the power to put the agenda of your people on the budget. If somebody is saying that, I agree. If somebody is saying that we must separate the treasury from the president so that the president does not run the treasury like his pocket money, so that where the president is, everybody is begging for this, begging for that, I will agree. If we say that we must have elections that terminate at the constituency, I will agree. If we say that we must have a sovereign wealth fund established so that we can save money for future generations, I will agree. But if somebody just says that come together so that we just simply kick Ruto out so that we can replace Ruto with another Ruto, I'm not with them.
And finally, Senator, in 1 or 2 seconds, what are the mathematical chances, in your view, of Okia the 6th?
I think where things stand is very, very real. And I'm seeing I'm looking at 70%.
Way above the required 50% plus 1.
Yeah, I'm looking at 70%.
And where does that confidence come from?
What I'm doing on the ground.
Which is?
I have a team going around. I've got, in fact, we are releasing something called Identity very soon. This is by the Gen Z to go and spread the message, do political education. We have people who are doing town halls and stuff, and the need is positive. And people have understood that the economy, and nothing else but the economy, is the primary issue we must address in the country today. And so I've got full confidence. When shove comes to push, I will emerge victorious.
We are talking of an election, Senator, 807 days ahead. Of course, we will host you many times in the future. Thank you for your time tonight.
Welcome.
On TV47. Remember,
thank you for the chance.
Discussion, send us a message on 22047. Let's get to the world of business. Let's count the cost, and Italy and Kenya have launched a partnership to create an AI hub focused on sustainable development with strong emphasis on green technology and job creation, spearheaded by Italy's Minister of Enterprise and tied to the G7 agenda. The initiative aims to contribute $2.4 billion to Kenya's economy by 2030 and generate more than 30,000 jobs by 2028. Key sectors include agriculture, health, education, and infrastructure. The hub will foster local talent, innovation, and technical skills. To the farms now, and the Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe has announced the release of 200,000 bags of maize from the National Strategic Grain Reserve to registered millers in an effort to stabilize flour prices and prevent a possible shortage. The maize stored by the National Cereals and Produce Board will be sold at a subsidized rate of 4,250 shillings per 90 kg bag. Distribution will be handed through select depots in the North and South Rift regions.
We have enough maize in our strategic food reserves. We also still have enough maize being held by our large-scale farmers, so there shouldn't be any worry. Okay, for example, for registered millers, We have the top tier, which are under Cereal Millers Association. We also have another tier called Green Bell Grain Millers, and the other smaller millers. The process is this. A miller must have a valid trading license. They must have a certificate of incorporation. They must have a certificate from Kenya Bureau of Standards for the brand.
To the world of sports now, and a section of Football Kenya Federation Nairobi East Branch stakeholders have presented a petition to FKF CEO requesting the national office to ensure that the branch elections are held not later than the end of June. The stakeholders also raised concerns over the branch administration that led to the current chairman, Dickson Doyo, who they say and accused of sidelining them in the matters regarding football in the branch, and they have planned to nominate sub-branch officials, which is against the constitution of the federation. In their statement, they have also complained about the rise of unprofessionalism in the league, as league slots have remained to be for the highest bidder. Now, still on sports, and Zimbabwean Q artist Esther Chimbwanda emerged as the champion of the Eldoret Thrilling Tournament, which culminated earlier today at the Timber XO Pool Arena. David Njane, who recently showcased his skills at the Heibol Grandmasters final in China just a week prior, clinched the coveted men's Shujaa final title, defeating Rawlings Onyango in a tense final showdown. In the women's category, Naomi Nganga emerged victorious, earning the title of Shujaa Ladies Champion after overcoming Patricia Kerushe. Well, that is it from me, Abubakar Abdullahi, on behalf of the entire team that made this production possible. Bye for now. Enjoy the rest of our programs. 90 Plus is up next. Watch Kenya's fastest growing television. Good night and God bless.